Okay. So, Elizabeth, when traveling, we need knowledge of English, for example, when we in the streets and at the cafes, for example, and somewhere. So let's make a list of some basic words a traveler needs, like water in a desert.
Exactly, you're right. So we need the basics, okay? I know you have all these dreams of the Eiffel Tower and whatever, but you forget that what you really need is food, shelter, transport, and of course money. So let's start with food. So nowadays, like, people have lots of dietary preferences. So, for example, if you're at a restaurant and maybe you're a vegan, like I am, you would say, I am, and then a vegan, pescatarian, fruitarian, whatever, and then I don't eat. And then you should Google all the list of foods that you can't eat and just write them on a piece of paper. So, for example, I would say, I don't eat eggs, fish, meat, dairy products. Finished. But people also have allergens, like my little brother, he's allergic to gluten. So he would say, I am allergic to, and then gluten, or nuts, or whatever. And then I don't eat bread, pasta, so on and so forth. So those just like two basic sentences. As long as you know the words that come after them, then you'll be fine in a restaurant. And even if you don't have like dietary preferences or allergens or whatever, I don't know about you guys, but I know that...
I eat everything.
You eat everything? Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well then let me ask you, if you went to an Indian restaurant, would you be able
Wow,
to...
Indian.
Yes?
My favorite one.
No? Okay, well...
We like spicy food.
Okay, well you are not normal Russians, because like 90% of my Russian friends think that I'm crazy when they see me adding like chilies or something. So I think it probably is important for you guys, if you know how to say, please make it mild. So don't make it spicy, make it mild so the food isn't hot, because, for example, in England, we love our spicy curries.
And like jalapeno?
Oh, yes, I think so, but that's like more Mexican. And to be honest, I'm not such a big fan of Mexican, but Indian
Because she's from Great Britain, yeah, it should be more like Indian.
Yeah, I suppose American people, I think they're mad about the Mexican stuff.
Yeah.
So yes, that's about it with food. Oh, and one more thing actually, you know, when you're in a country, you want to try the specialities. You know, don't just be asking for borscht or pasta or whatever, try something new. So just ask them, for example, what's in season? What's a speciality? What would you recommend? And then, yeah, people will sort of, you'll get to try a piece of their culture, and that's obviously what's most important with traveling. And then, so we've got food and shelter. So with shelter, it's just simple things like ensuite. So if you're booking a room, you want to have a bathroom with that room. You don't want to come to the hotel and find that your toilet's like right at the end of the hallway somewhere and you have to share it with someone.
Well, it's hostel.
Yeah, okay, if it's a hostel, but just so that you know what you're getting yourself into. And then maybe if you're traveling with friends, you need to make sure that you're sort of ordering single beds rather than a double. So just things like that, little things. So double, single, ensuite, and then, yeah, view. View is the most important thing. Can I please have a nice view? And then transport. So in Russia you call it the metro, but in England we say the underground. In America it's...
tube.
Or the tube, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Actually, where I come from in Manchester, we don't have an underground. But we do have what we call a metro, and the metro is actually a tram system. It's really weird. So if you say, like, I need the metro, in Manchester you'd be sent to a tram. So just make sure you know sort of like the lexicon with public transport. And then, of course, it's all about questions as well. So you guys know the words like taxi, bus, things like that. But you'll struggle with directions and things like that. So you'll have to say, for example... And in England or wherever you go, you have to be really, really polite. In Russia, I think you guys can be pretty direct. You're like, you know, hello, is this the right way? And there's no pleases or thank yous, there's no smiles. You really have to be open and try and make friends. And I know that in Russia it's like, I don't know about you guys, but I think there's sort of like this mentality that if you show your emotions, then you're somehow like a fool or something and you're not that intelligent? I don't know, but no?
It's difficult to say, honestly.
I suppose
Why?
People who generalise are generally wrong.
I think British people, they are the most in this case, politeness.
Yeah, we're very polite. Sometimes we take it a little bit too far because we don't say sometimes what we want to say. But, you know, when in Rome, do what the Romans do. When in England, be polite. So, excuse me, but do you happen to know? And then you'd say, you know, which bus to take to go to Regent's Park. Excuse me, do you happen to know where this hotel is? Excuse me, do you happen to know where a restaurant is? Excuse me, da 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 da. So just that small sentence, and then you can just add on whatever ending you want at the end. And then if you're anything like me and you've got just, you know, a parrot's brain and you don't remember anything, then what you'll I'm really bad with directions and things like that. So then you'd say afterwards, you'd find another person and you'd say, excuse me, but is this the right way? Or is this the right person? So just those sort of sentences will help. And I think, money. We can't forget money.
You say quid, right?
My dad would say, a couple quid. But I wouldn't say, it depends. It really depends with who you're with and sort of your background. So my dad would definitely say quid. But
so quid instead of pounds.
Yeah, and there's other sort of slang as well. Like if you go to the Cockney areas of London, they've got loads of weird sayings, but you can say pound and it's fine. But you could say quid as well, and people will think you're like a real Brit then. But doesn't matter.
Right.
But what's important, of course, is like, excuse me, can I have the bill, please? A great one to ask, and I think people often forget that you can ask for a discount, and oftentimes you can get a really good deal as long as you just ask. I mean, if you don't ask, of course you won't get a discount, but if you say, excuse me, but would it be possible to have a little discount? You'll probably get a few pounds off, you know, just for saying please, excuse me, just asking. And then, just be aware of short change when people don't give you enough change and things like that. But I think that's about it. And tips, they're similar in the UK. It's not like America and things like that. So, I think that's about it with that. Mm-hmm. So smile, openness, pleases and thank yous. Make lots of friends. Don't be that, Russian spy. You have to smile. Okay.
Can you share a quick way to memorize words with us?
Okay, so for example, I'm trying to learn Russian, and of course, it really depends what kind of learner you are. Kinetic, visual, or verbal learner. But either way, you just have to make it really memorable and very emotional. So I find that sentences help, like making a small story. So putting a story inside a sentence. So, for example, a nice word to remember when you're traveling is boutique or scenic. Because, you often as a tourist, you get sent to those sort of big, all-inclusive hotels and things like that, and you don't really get a feel of the culture. So, for example, to remember the word boutique, I would say, the two lovers never forgot the night they lay on the balcony in the boutique hotel and stared up at the stars. That's just because I'm romantic, though. You could think of something completely different, something just like related to your own life experience. Little rhymes, poems, things like that help. So I know in Russia you're really big about learning poems, and I think that's great in a way, even though maybe sometimes you take it a bit too far and it's a bit too traditional, but poems really do help you learn new words because you've got the rhyming, so you remember the pronunciation. You can even make up your own ones. Just think of a few like rhyming words like motel, no-tell, just things like that that you can sort of just remember with a rhyme.
Okay. There is a book. There are book vocabulary and conversation vocabulary. And there are words which are like more sophisticated and less sophisticated. For example, to buy and to purchase. Mm-hmm. Can you give an example of other words like that?
Okay, well, to be honest, I think that Russian people maybe not Russian people, but English learners in general, they place too much of a focus on trying to sound very posh and formal, and maybe it's because you guys have watched too much Downton Abbey or Queen's Speeches or whatever, I don't know. But in England, we don't speak like that. And if you want to sound like a native, then you actually should be, not avoiding, but certainly using less formal words, and instead not using slang, but use phrasal verbs. So a phrasal verb, for example, if you wanted to say, I was burglared yesterday. So someone broke into my house. See, I would say someone broke into my house, but you guys would say, oh, you won't believe it, I was burglared. And that sounds very pretentious and things like that. So we would say broken in. Or if we are really tired, you'd say, oh, I'm tired, or oh, I'm exhausted. Whereas I would say, I'm worn out. So that's a phrasal verb. And there's loads of them, and some of them don't make sense, some of them aren't logical, but a lot of them are, and they're usually like 2 words or 3 words together. I don't think you really have them in Russian. You don't have phrasal verbs. And there's a lot of them, there's 2,000 of them, but if you want to learn like a native, and if you want to understand natives when they're speaking at like a breakneck pace, then you have to know some phrasal verbs.
We have them, but they just
Do you?
they're called different. Yeah, they're called differently. For example, if you are saying I'm worn out,
Yeah?
we'll say я так устала и выгляжу как выстиранная тряпка. We have it.
But that's like an idiom though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more
But
like an
like
idiom.
a phrasal verb isn't like an idiom, it's just, it's a different, it's a word, but it's made from it. So I don't think, you have something similar, but it's not like exactly the same. And I think Russians don't use them at all. Never. And we use them all the time. While speaking. I've never really had a student who's ever used them. Apart from maybe like a young student would tell me, oh, shut up or something. But that's an example of a phrasal verb, shut up. They wouldn't say be quiet, they would say shut up. And that's what you should be using. Just maybe not shut up.
What will be more polite instead of shut up?
Would you mind sort of bringing the conversation to a close?
Oh my god, that's too long. Yeah, it's very British way.
We have to be long, that's what I'm saying. You have to say, excuse me, thank you, make your sentences long, because in Russia you're very direct.
That's why you have phrasal verbs.
And that's
Exactly.
why Americans always, joking because of that.
Yeah, maybe.
That you guys are too sophisticated and too sort of
I don't
elegant.
know. You see, for us Americans are like these are burly, big and loud. I'm quite loud, but I think Americans are even louder. And we sort of get along, but it's a special relationship, I think, as Donald Trump says. Yeah. Anyway, so I think that's about it with the formal words. I can't think of anything else to say about them.
Okay, and so you're from Manchester, as you said.
I
as you
am
mentioned.
indeed.
Yes, and have you got any proverbs, sayings, typically English?
Oh my word. Okay, so my dad, for example, there's like so many different things I could say, and they're not exactly from Manchester. I think a lot of their origins are unknown. But for example, if we're having dinner, my dad would always tell me, oh, you've eaten 2 more tatties than a pig. So I don't know whether that's actually an idiom that most English people would use, but it's definitely what my dad uses. So it means that you've eaten 2 more potatoes more than a pig. We say tatties. It's like you've eaten a lot. Or for example, when I was younger, I was quite a sort of naughty child.
More young.
Yeah, in my youth, I'm very old now. So
In your early days.
yes. So if I didn't get my way, I would start crying, and my mum would call them crocodile tears because they're just like fake tears. So I was a crocodile. I had crocodile tears.
Yeah,
and
we have
Kind of a thing, yeah.
do you?
Yeah,
Crocodile
exactly.
слезы. He's crocodile слезы.
No way! Okay, that's interesting. Didn't know that. I've never heard of that before. You see, you don't pick up the idioms, I think, when you're learning a language. So I've never heard that before, even though I've been in Russia for a year. And maybe that's because it just sort of goes past you. And I think that's why maybe it's important to learn the idioms, because if you just hear them, they'll sort of go through one ear and through the next, and you'll never really remember it. So I think, yeah, idioms are important to learn. So another idiom, we've got lots that are related to animals. So, for example, they'd be like, call Josh, he's the bee's knees in IT, if you have a problem with a computer. So bee's knees means that like someone's really good at something. Or, for example, I'm always accused of this, of talking the hind legs off a donkey. So it basically means that you keep on talking and talking and talking and talking and talking until a donkey would like fall asleep. So talk the hind legs, hind means like back, legs off a donkey. It's kind of weird. Or we'd say like, till kingdom come, or till the cows come home. It's like sort of till the end of the world. And you're like, what? Till the cows come home? I mean, what time do the cows never come home? So that's sort of some other words. What else do we have that's related to? Can I continue? Can I keep on going on? Or do you want?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. So then another one would be about food. So for example, if something's really easy, we have different ways of saying it. So when I was younger, and I think children say it, but sometimes adults say it as well when you're feeling playful, we'd say easy peasy, or
easy queasy, or
easy queasy. I don't know.
Like easy
queasy is like when you're sick, so it's easy, and then queasy. I don't know, but we say easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Yeah,
sometimes
exactly.
Yeah, you've heard of it? Okay, because I thought that was like a kid's thing. I think, okay. And like piece of cake, or for example, when something, I think you guys must have heard of this, like, it's not my cup of tea. Because in England, we love our tea. And actually, where I come from, we don't call it tea, we call it brew, a brew. So you'd be like, oh, hi Irina, would you like a brew? Instead of, would you like a cup of tea? Or what else do we have that's related to food? Sugar. So I love this one. It's one of my favorite words actually because my grandma said it all the time. So you know in Russian you say pancake, like blin, when you're annoyed with something, pancake. So my grandma, and I think it's mostly in the north, you'd say sugar when you're annoyed with something. So for example, sugar. If something doesn't work out, it's sugar.
So weird.
It's just it's like a sweet, for me it's kind of sweet, but then it's like anger at the same time. It's sugar, it's like, sweet and sour. And then with money, we've got lots of idioms related to money. So for example, if something's really expensive, then we'd say that it costs an arm and a leg. Or for example, if something's like, we've got lots of idioms related to gold. So for example, I think, in my opinion, luxury brands like Chanel and things like that, which my mum is obsessed with, I would say that's fool's gold. Or just because fool's gold, so a fool is like an idiot, and gold is gold. So it's just something that looks as if it's worth something, but really isn't. Fool's gold. Or for example, if something is just like really amazing or someone's really great, you'd say he's worth his weight in gold. So he's like just an unbelievable person, so valuable, it's worth its weight in gold. What else do we have? There's just so many different ones. I remember one which I loved when I was little. So, don't get your knickers in a twist. So that's sort of like, knickers is like sort of your underwear, and don't get them in a twist. It's like, if you heard it, you'd be like, what are you talking about? Why are you mentioning my underwear? But it just means like, don't get angry, sort of don't get all steamed up about it. Just, calm down, be cool, keep calm, and carry on. That's another sort of idiom that's everywhere. I mean, you get pictures of it and things like that.
Of course, for sure. Great.
Do you want me to say any more?
I think that's enough for now.
More than enough.
Yes. Let's switch to another question.
We'll ask you to send us the list, maybe with your own additions, and we will maybe
with pleasure.
We'll put it in a special slide in a special place.
But you'll definitely sound like a native if you use them. People will be really, really surprised, and they'll probably say, "Excuse me, can you say that again?" Because they just won't believe that you're actually saying them.
Okay.
So, yeah.
About the next question, I have I have a question.
Okay.
For example, I had a name as top 5 common words or unusual English words, and you have chosen unusual, yeah, right?
Not really unusual, just sort of my favorite. I'm a bookworm.
So I should ask you about your favorite words, yeah?
Yeah, I suppose so. I'm a bookworm, and now living in Russia, I sort of, when I speak to my students, as I was saying before, you guys tend to use very formal words. And I really miss the words that sort of are used back home. And a lot of them are really silly, but they're sweet for me because they come from my childhood and things like that. So yes, so codswallop. So a cod is like a fish, and that's the only sort of connection I can make. But codswallop is just nonsense. So instead of saying, oh, he's talking absolute nonsense, I would say, oh, it's codswallop. Another one of my favourite ones is bosom. So now it has a bit of a different meaning, but so you know, you have loads of friends nowadays on social media, like you've got thousands of friends there. Not me. I'm not such like, I'm not really a techie person. I'm a dinosaur when it comes to technology, so I don't really go on social media that often. But we just live in this world where we've got so many acquaintances, so many friends, and it's quite difficult to say, like, when someone's really special for you, you wouldn't say, like, oh, she's my best friend, because you've got so many best friends. So I would say, oh, they're like a bosom friend. So it means that someone who's really close to you. It's like it's quite an old word. And what else? So bosom, very romantic. Bugger. In Manchester, we say it all the time. I don't think they say it in London, but it's like you could call someone a bugger. So, for example, oh, he's a real bugger. It's like just an annoying person. And it's not a bad word. It's just like an annoying person. Or you can just say bugger as an exclamation mark, like bugger. Like, oh my word, oh God, what's happened? It's the same as sugar, basically, but it's more, sugar is like more for females, and bugger is, I think, that's what my dad would sort of use instead of swearing. So bugger instead is sort of more polite. Because Americans are mad about swear words, I think, you know. I mean, well, okay, people who generalize are generally wrong, but I do find that when I went to New York, I heard a lot of people swearing, whereas in Manchester, you know, we're pretty rough, but still, we don't swear that much, so we'd say bugger instead. What other favourite words do I have? Codswallop, bugger. I'm just trying to think, there's so many. What else do I have? What did I write down here? Oh, bloody and quintessential. Okay, so quintessential is rather a posh one. So do you guys know what it means? Have you ever heard of it before? Oh, okay, well, you guys are clever, but just in case, you know, you're not such, you're not so good at English as these guys, quintessential basically means like the sort of, the model of something. So, for example, I would say she's a quintessential Russian, which means that she, I don't know, she has matryoshkas in her house, she has those weird cups with those paintings on. It means like sort of the essence of what it means to be Russian, quintessential. I like that word because it sounds very posh. So I would say,
May I ask?
Yeah.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
If you will explain to our viewers, in Russia, almost no one know a word posh.
Posh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think it's such a big thing in Russia because you've had so many revolutions and things like that. But in England, okay, we're a very inclusive society. We're very democratic. Hallelujah, thank God for that. But we do have a class system. So we have people from Manchester, like me. They're generally sort of in the gutters, lower class. Whereas upper class people, so people who are a little bit richer, who talk a little bit like this, they would be called posh or posh totties. You know, when you think of those middle class mothers who go for tea after they drop their children off and they have maybe their chihuahuas in their bags and maybe they're from Essex, then they would be called posh totties. We'd also say
they usually go to Selfridges and Harrods.
Of course, exactly. Harvey Nichols, things like that. We'd say like So I know in Russia, I think you do this when someone's drunk. So I love that. I think it's great. But in England, when we see someone who's a little bit, in love with themselves, we go like this.
Like a big nose.
Yeah, no, up the nosy. We'd say up the nosy, they're up the nosy. We say that about French all the time. The French are up the nosy. But, so yeah, posh people would say, oh, it's a bit up the nosy. Or stick up the arse. Stick up the arse. It's when someone's very proper. That's another idiom. That's a little bit, you think, oh my word, what's that person saying?
Stick in the ass?
Stick up the arse. So it sounds really, really rude, and you're like, what? But even I'm not sure whether the Queen would say it, but everyone says it when someone's very proper and very pretentious and very, just sort of putting on a show.
Okay. Let's again swap to the travel topic.
Okay.
What idioms do you know? Can you share your knowledge with us that have a travel word inside them?
Okay.
Like, for example, whatever floats your boat.
That's a great one.
But they're not related to traveling.
Well, there's lots of them that aren't related
tricky
to traveling.
Phrases.
Most idioms, I think, are tricky. That's why you have to study them, because otherwise if you hear them, you'll just sort of, I think, mute them out because they're just so weird and just difficult to understand. So, boats. So, in the same boat. We're in the same boat. It's like when someone's in the same situation, you say, oh, in the same boat.
Mm-hmm. We have the same. В одной лодке.
Really?
В одной лодке. Mm-hmm.
See, this is so cool. I had no idea.
Yeah, so we can compare.
That's great. Okay, and what about anchors away? So do you know what an anchor is?
Yeah.
So, okay. I know she knows everything.
No anchor, but anchors away, I don't know.
Okay, so it's like, let's set off, let's start doing something.
Okay,
so it's like, you pull the anchors away, away. Another one, this one is related to traveling. Yeah. But when you hear it, you'd be like, wait, what? What are you talking about? So, especially if you're in America. If you're in America, you'd get scared if you heard this. And they say it all the time in America. So you're coming to someone's car and you want to sit next to the driver. So you're not going to be the driver, but you're going to sit in the front seat. You'd say shotgun. And obviously with all the news in America, you'd be like, oh, what? Hands up. But shotgun means front seat, sitting in the front seat. Another one... Jump on the bandwagon. So when there's a trend, for example, I don't know, like plugging or pluging. I'm obsessed with pluging at the moment. I don't know. Do you guys know what pluging is? No, you've never heard of it before? Okay.
Plugging, I know.
No, so plugging, it's spelt like plugging, but it's something different. It's actually a Swedish word and an English word combined. So I think plug in Swedish means like pick up. Mm-hmm. And ging comes from jogging. So I have jumped on the pluging bandwagon, which is jogging and picking up rubbish, because I love the environment.
Oh yeah, I know this trend. This crazy Swedish thing.
It's not crazy. It's really great. You guys should try it. It's like you get your exercise, you make your city more beautiful, and it's not just like monotonous jogging. You're stretching down, picking it up, carrying the rubbish, because there is a lot of rubbish in the parks.
For me, it's pretty much the same as, how it's called, doing yoga, practicing yoga with beer.
Beer yoga? What's it called?
Yeah, beer yoga.
Okay.
Like they drink beer and they doing meditation, different positions.
I think it would be pretty difficult to do like, I don't know, what's it called, like Satanam or something on
they're
one
doing like
leg
that
and then falling over.
For me, all these things, like combination of, jogging and collecting rubbish or drinking beer and doing yoga.
I don't think those are analogous though. I don't think so. I mean, drinking beer, that's like for yourself and that's rather indulgent, but picking up rubbish, I mean, you feel so good afterwards, so just... Yeah, like a good person. I don't know. After drinking a few bottles of beer, maybe you also feel like a good person, I'm not sure.
No, you feel like everyone else is our good people.
Maybe. Yeah, and...
Environment's becoming very friendly, I think.
Yeah, of course, it's very important. And I think in Russia there's not enough sort of attention paid to it. Just a few more, if you want me to think of a few more related to travel. So, I think you have this in Russian. Actually, this is one idiom which I've learnt in Russian. I think it's Babia Leta.
Indian summer, yeah?
Indian summer, exactly. And I pray that we're going to have an Indian summer.
And usually Brits go on vacation during the Indian summer. It's like the good season. Season.
Yeah, I suppose so. I suppose so. Yes, we do. It's well, August mostly, but yeah, maybe
August and September.
Yeah. In June we tend to we don't have such long holidays as in Russia. In Russia you have 3 months, which is crazy. In England we have, I think, about 2 months, maybe even a little bit less. Yeah, and I think that's about it. Oh, rock the boat. Rock the boat. If you're a rebel, you rock the boat. You sort of disrupt people, you break conventions, you rock the boat. I think that's cool.
Okay, thank you very much. And is English different in Manchester and London? And can you give any examples?
Okay, so that's a lovely question because I think that Russian people, I am really generalizing now, but I have to generalize. So I don't think they really appreciate the variety of language there is. So I often find my students will tell me, Elizabeth, how should I pronounce this? Should I say, I don't know, butter or butter? And I'll be like, you can say either, both are correct. And they'll be like, no, there must be, one correct way. How should I say it? But I think it's because maybe in Russia, from the Soviet Union, maybe like destroying other cultures, you've sort of got like this one accent. I've never really been able to tell the different Russian accents, and I've asked Russians and they sort of tell me that there's like a difference between, I think, the north and the south, but not really much. Whereas in England, you just need to travel 30 minutes by car and there will be a completely different language. Foreigners who think they know English and then they go to Liverpool, for example, they come back from there and they're like, they weren't speaking English. They're speaking another language. I'm like, no, they're speaking English. And they're like, they're not speaking English. And it's just because the pronunciation is so different.
And nothing to say about Ireland, Scotland, Wales.
Yeah.
This is really different language.
But they're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful, the different accents. So to get back to your question, Manchester, London. We're about a 5-hour drive away from each other, so the accent differs widely. But the
idioms,
the idioms and the words, not much. As I was saying, we might say brew, but it more depends on class than actual region. So if you're lower class, you might say, for example, that was mint. And mint means like really cool. Whereas if you're upper class, you might say, oh, that was absolutely fabulous. So you could tell.
It's about time.
Oh, okay. I'm always going on. So yeah, you could tell the difference perhaps from a few words, but not really. We sort of, it's just from the accent. So within 3 or 4 words, you'd be able to tell. Mancunian accent is really nasal, so it's like, you're talking a bit like this, and it's really annoying. And a London accent is more sort of deep in the chest, I suppose.
Do you think that the language and the idioms and some phrases, they have changed through a few decades?
I'm not sure about idioms. I think idioms are so ingrained in the culture that they haven't really changed much. I think there's a few that have gone out of use, but not really. But there are some words that have changed their meanings. So, if you were reading a book maybe that's a century old or something like that, and you saw the word kid, nowadays we'd associate that word with child, but before it actually used to mean a baby goat. It still means that now, but people who are older, so for example my grandma, if she ever heard anyone with saying kid, she'd be like, what? Are you talking about a baby goat? So kid, cool. The origin of the word is actually really interesting. It came from the jazz bars in the 1930s in New York. So it used to mean because they had their windows open at the top because everyone was smoking. Yeah. So they needed the windows open and the cold air would come in, so it was a cool place. And then cool later on came to be synonymous with in the mode, groovy, things like that. Wicked, sick. So these are all words which had negative connotations a while ago. You know, oh, she's a wicked lass. But now, if you said, oh, she's a wicked girl, it doesn't mean she's a witch. It means that she's really, really cool. Same with sick. My mum still doesn't understand this. One day she was driving a really posh car and the boys were shouting, oh, you got a sick ride. She was like, what? Do I have vomit all over my car or something? No, it's just, it means cool. So, yeah, there's lots of change. There's been small changes, but they're not major. So I wouldn't, worry too much about it. Don't get your knickers in a twist.
Okay. Please give a piece of advice to our travelers with a limited vocabulary.
Okay, so as always, just basic advice, plan ahead. You're probably not going to have to speak English that much, so I would just plan where you're going to go. So for example, today I am going to the art museum. Then write a few questions that you'd like to ask about art, painting, artists, things like that. If you're going to a restaurant, if you're going to the airport, just 5 or 10 words should do it. And then if you just remember the words which I talked about before and the simple sentence structure, excuse me, but do you happen to know, and then 3 more words or so, then you'll be fine. And obviously Google Translate is always there to help, and English lessons before, of course, would be great. I think that's about it. For English learning, I think. And of course, just smiling. A smile speaks 1,000 words. So if you've got a smile
Always
you'll be fine. Yeah, so big smiles.
So we have been talking about English idioms, American idioms, and so on. Do you have any South African idioms? Do you know any South African idioms?
Yeah, well, in South Africa, I don't know so many South African idioms. I've only been living there, I lived there for 4 years. I still consider myself living there because my family still live there. But in South Africa, what really shocked me at the beginning was when I was asking for directions, and this is what you have to be aware of, the sort of local dialects. People would say, oh, you need to go straight down the road and turn right at the robots. Like, what? Robots, And robots means traffic lights in South African. Or, for example, trainers. Trainers, like sneakers, they're called techies. Or, I like this, bra. So bra means something very different in English. It's like underwear. Whereas in South African English, they would say bra to mean like, oh, my friend. Oh, he's my bra. What are you talking about?
Can't believe it.
Yeah, there's some weird things.
So weird.
Lekker, I love that. Lekker means cool. I still use that today because I think that's a really nice word. It's lekker. It's been lekker talking to you guys today.
Okay, and just the last question.
Of course.
And can you recommend any books, films, series to our participants?
About traveling.
Yeah, well, I'm mad about traveling and I'm mad about literature. I'm a real bookworm. So, Bill Bryson, he's an American, but he's lived in England for quite a long time. And he's just written more than 10 books about traveling. And they're just so humorous. I mean, do not take that book on the aeroplane or something like that because you're just going to burst out laughing. It's impossible to stop laughing. I don't know whether you guys have read his books before. No?
No.
You should. Bill Bryson is amazing. And it's great to read before you go to a place because he's so detailed. So even though it's really funny, it's very factual as well. Brooklyn, about this Irish girl who moves to Brooklyn near New York. That's a wonderful story. The Grand Budapest Hotel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel.
That's my favorite.
Okay.
That's because I love everything connected to India and Indian movies and collaboration with
you will love The 100-Step Journey. Have you watched that?
Yes.
Oh!
I'm expert in this kind of, not everything,
Okay.
but this kind of movies, yeah.
Okay, and A Good Year, very romantic, and Stand By Me, about an autistic girl who travels with her dog through in America. That's a new movie, and it's really thought-provoking. Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, so
Thanks for a very nice conversation, Elizabeth. It was very, I think,
well, I hope it was useful.
it was very useful, and I think we went very deep into the language and
But I
idioms
hope
and
we didn't go
phrases.
too deep. I hope it was entertaining as
No,
well.
we didn't go too far. No.
Perfect.
Okay,
It was really
thank you so
interesting.
much. Yes.
Perfect, thank you.